Welcome back to another episode of Ready to Be Heard. Now today we are going to be talking about something that I know so many of you do. If you have been posting every single day and you're still getting crickets, it's probably not the algorithm and it is probably your strategy. Now the thing is, I know that loads and loads of techniques out there suggest showing up every day, and that is correct. The more we can be present, it does feed the algorithms. But there's a big but that goes with that. That's a little bit like throwing spaghetti in the wall and hoping that it works. It is fine to have experimentation phases, but at the moment I know that you're putting stuff out there that you think is good and it is not working. And that's when we've got to change what we do. Even if we continue to post every day, it's not that you're posting every day that's causing you to stay invisible. It's what you're posting, why you're posting it, and how it's coming across. Whether that is tricking the algorithm with B-rolls that are 7 seconds long and have loads of text on them, so it tricks the algorithm into thinking you're staying. Okay, sure, you can get viral posts from that. But lots of the times you get lots more views, maybe not as much engagement. And so it all comes down to all these games that we play, and I just can't be bothered to play the games. I get that the algorithms need some level of feeding, but we don't have to play the games to a point that it feels so inauthentic to be putting content out there. Like, I get bogged down myself if I feel like I've got too distracted by the algorithm game, and it's really hard. You get drawn back into it because you're like, oh well, that's not working like it was. It's so interesting because I was scrolling back to find a post that I may have saved or liked back in 2021. And it was so interesting to go through my save because the things that I've got saved in 2021 are me going, well, I need to replicate that, I need to do that. That's what I do when I save. I save because I'm like, oh, that's the inspiration for what I need to do soon. It's probably called a do this or replicate that folder. And just looking at the content that was going out back then, I was like, oh my God, like the whole landscape really has changed, even in 4 years of what we were doing to get attention back then. And that's true for now. So you will feel frustration at times, things do change. But the reality is, like, really good content gets listened to all the time because it doesn't rely on the algorithm. If you keep playing the algorithm game, you have to keep changing when the algorithm changes. But if you can find content that does well enough, it might not go millions viral. No, it might not get thousands of likes. But what it does is it does get you the attention from the right people that you need. It gets you from being invisible to being known for what you do. And that's what I'm going to break down in this episode. I've got notes, so you might see me looking down if you are watching on a video, because there's quite a lot that I want to say for this one. But it's not content alone that builds the visibility. It's what's in the content, and it's how the content is created and the meaning behind some of it. And this is what we call strategy in part of what there is. So the first thing that we need to come along to is that frequency does not equal visibility. You can't just get seen more by posting more. For sure, it probably will increase the number of views you get, but it doesn't necessarily lead to anything better because the algorithm's throwing it out to random people at the start. So yeah, sure, if it does 100 views per video, okay, then if you put 5 videos out there, you would expect 500 views in a day. Okay, sure, that is going to get you seen more. The only advantage to that is that you have tested 4 more things than you would if you'd only done 1. And there is a period and a time where I say, it's called the experimentation exception, where you just bombard with videos because it's the quickest way to do it. Rather than waiting for 3 weeks. So say you want to test out 20 videos. 1 a day is 21 days, is 3 weeks. If you just went for 5 videos a day, you'd have it done within a week, 4 days. Boom, 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 boom. And you know the result of that test already. In fact, you can run the test again to see what the circumstantial situations are. Like something might have gone viral purely on a particular day. Or it might have been the fact that you posted all of them in the morning rather than spreading them out through the day. You can actually do different kinds of tests. So that gets that out of the way. But when we get fixated then on frequency and the sheer amount of content we're putting out there rather than what the content is, we lose the message behind what we are doing. We think that we've got to say more, say it quickly, get ourselves out there, and it blurs the message. We lose the power of nuance. We lose the power of being able to talk slowly. Because I perform very differently when I'm doing a video that I know has got 90 seconds, and once 90 seconds is up, it's done. I talk quicker, I cut the video in a particular way where there's no real pauses. Because pauses give time for thinking, which is exactly what you're doing now, I'd like to think. But if I do that sometimes in a 60-second video that I've created for TikTok, Instagram, usually I'm doing quick cuts, because we know that people listening and watching on their phones are generally short of attention spans. So when I take these clips for the podcast and make them for social media, oh boy, do I take the pauses out. The program I use, the AI, has a tool to do that. It makes it very easy. So it's not like a big job I have to do. But when you're creating a podcast where you want clients that are reflective and thoughtful and are coachable, that can retain attention for more than 7 seconds, you want to be able to create content that gives them space to think. And for you not to have to rush through what you're trying to convey. And so we want great core content. We want content that we can use, that can be adjusted to fit the algorithm so that we can use it to get attention. But we need that content to also pique interest and to then bring people along so that they will listen to it in more depth. It's a bit like going to networking and talking to everyone and anyone as quickly as possible. And you're basically saying, hey, how are you? What do you do? And that's it, and done. Sure, you might have met a lot of people, but how many people really connected with you? How many people remember you? Whereas if you're kind of tactical at a networking event and you go there and you have the aim of having 5 really good conversations, and, you know, by all means ask some early questions to whittle people out, such as like, oh, like, how do you get seen online? If you are going for, you know, actual leads rather than just doing relationship building. If they say, oh, you know, we're all about telephone sales, or we don't do any marketing. Oh, podcasting. What is a podcast? How do people get clients through podcasts? Like, instantly, that to me is going to be like, oh, okay, there's a lot of convincing to do here if you want a podcast. But if you can find people that go, oh, you know, I've been thinking of doing a podcast, the equivalent of that for you, by the way. I'm not expecting you to be running a podcast. But, you know, that's different. Actually, I need to invest in this person, and I need to talk and have a conversation. And that's what our content needs to do without us having to speak to everyone. It needs to give people that same experience, that same feeling that's going on. Which brings me on to point number 2. Often we are so busy creating content that we forget we need to create connection. And people end up just churning out content. And this is where the danger of AI is. Because you think, well, you know, I've got to post. If I post more, I'll get seen more. So if I just post, it's going to happen. But not all content is made the same. Certainly not the stuff made by AI, unless you have been very, very specific and given it so much source data. So much source data. And some of your source data can be your podcasts, right? You know, there is an advantage to creating a podcast because it is an asset. But we need to remember that our content is meant to be creating connection. It's meant to be grabbing attention, making someone feel heard and seen. Yes, we are ready to be heard, but we also are trying to make our audience feel heard. That they feel that the space that you provide, that the way that you talk about their group of people, them, who they are and what they do, is what they would want. They would want you at the front, being one of the leaders, standing up for them, feeling safe in your space, the space that you create for them. And so when we get trapped in, I've got to create more content, we forget to create that relationship, to create that connection. And you end up saying a lot of things without saying anything at all either. It's the difference between this episode being called 5 top tips to not stay invisible, which is not the end of the world, versus posting every day isn't the reason you're still invisible. There's just a very content for content's sake, 5 top tips to do XYZ. And, if you've gone through any of my programs, my first episode I tell you to do is 8 ways to do XYZ. And that's just because it's high value and it's easy for you to come up with at the start. That's like level 1. I need you at level 10 by the end and develop it. So please don't feel that this is everything you must be doing immediately. A lot of the work that I do, my first aim is to get your podcast out there, because the amount of people that are in their own way over that is a nightmare. And that's why Podcast in a Day exists. Quickly get it done, do it for low amount of investment, use equipment that you've got and go. Now we need to get good. That's when the work really starts, and you get yourself through hurdle number 1 on your own if you want. I'm here to help you launch it proper if you want to do it all proper. I didn't do it proper. It's okay. But whatever you do, beyond that point of episode number 1, I want you creating content for connection, not creating for the sake of content. Now, number 3. I have been caught in number 3 many times before, be it in this business, in the previous business. And this is when we are being really generic with what we say. When we are actually a bit confused about what we do and how we help people, and it blurs our message. It muddies the water, and no one can actually work out what you stand for and what you do. And sure, people know I do podcasts, but the fact that people still talk to me about interview podcasts, I just roll my eyes. I huff internally a little bit, because that's really not what I do. I'm not here for entertainment's sake. I'm not here for you to have a casual chat with a bunch of people. No, I clearly haven't been clear enough in what I've been doing, and that's all the work I've been doing on reflecting on Ready to be Heard. I'm not here for the people that want to give a platform to other people. Oh God, that's an episode that needs to be made. Oh God, I'm sure it's in the list of the 12 that I've come up with. It's got to be. If it's not, I need to get it in there. I did a video on it earlier that hasn't gone out, but it's that. I stand for creating podcasts that are for you to give yourself a platform, not giving a bunch of other people that don't even have to edit it, don't have any obligation to share it, even if you do give them a contract that says they're going to share it and they don't, and sometimes they do. But no, that's not what I do. And sure, I can help you with strategy on that, but it's not getting me going in the same way that you're going to get all of that energy from me when I'm like, now do it for yourself. Do it for what you want to stand up to. Do it for what you stand for. And when you can start talking like that, I'm hoping you're feeling it as much as I'm feeling it right now. You know what I'm about. You know what you're about. Your audience know what you're about. And that will help them decide if they want to stick with you or do one. And if they do one, fantastic. We're not here for everyone. And that is the fear. Because I always go between, am I for people that are starting or am I for people that are growing? It really is both. But in a particular way, it all applies. Even if you've started, you could be getting it wrong. And you are probably worried about the things that are happening in the growth bit, even if you've not started. So in that sense, I think one thing to sort of understand, and I've got examples to explain this, is you've got to niche down beyond your topic. So yes, I help people to launch podcasts, launch them, start them, grow them. But the reality is that if I had to be specific, and I don't say this as a line, like when I'm at events, I just say I do podcasts because that's all I need at that point. The reality is when I am creating content and who I'm thinking for, I'm helping time-poor business owners, which could mean that they're solopreneurs or they're just people running to the ground, to stop chasing the algorithms of Instagram and TikTok and actually build authority with one podcast episode a week. Now, I don't have to communicate that anywhere. Everyone talks about this kind of niching thing and it's like, oh, but you don't have to come up with 55-year-old Susan who runs a PT business and XYZ. No, you don't have to communicate that anywhere in your messaging. But that's who you're thinking of. That's the reason. There's loads of reasons people want a podcast, but they're not all the same reasons that I'm talking about podcasting. And mine comes from those that want to have an impact, build their business, but don't have loads of time for this. They just need a system that does it for them, and it saves them from being tied to the algorithms that just need constant feeding. And the biggest area that I know many of you fall into is like, I'm a mindset coach. so am I. So am I. But I wouldn't call myself that. I was a mindset coach when I was a life coach. I was a mindset coach when I'm podcasting. You don't think that half of the stuff that I do with podcasting is mindset? Oh, but what will people think of me? When it comes to mindset, and even if you are really in the kind of realm of mindset, which is confidence coaching, which they always say don't be a coach in confidence, which I was at one point, so I've heard that message myself. You, for example, can niche even better with, I help ambitious women stop hiding behind productivity so they can feel worthy without overworking. Like, what is the specifics that, if I was still in teaching, we love being busy all the time because it distracts us. But they may not even know they've got that problem. So you'd have to become like an overworking coach, which is a weird title. But ideally, you're focusing on the real specific of what you're saying, that deeper element, and making sure that you attract people with that and repel other people. Next up, we're remembering that we cannot just rely on socials. Yep, socials are great, but we have to have the strategy behind it. We can't get distracted by too many of the platforms. We need to think long term. So I've already referenced within this episode that there's a bunch of episodes I'd already outlined with titles. Now, they're not all fully fledged yet, but I've gone through, I've got an order for them so that it rotates nicely. And that is mapped out for about 20 episodes. Now, that doesn't mean that something might not change at some point. Maybe something happens in the media, in my industry, that means I need to change it. Maybe something really relevant happens, or an article comes out and I'll pop my mic together and get it sorted and put something out there. But in the absence of that, and assuming that nothing does happen, actually, what I do is think, what do I want to lead to here? Where do I want it all to kick off? Where do I really want to push promoting something? And how do I work backwards from that? How do I get the people ready that are listening at home for being ready at that moment in time? How do I take them on a journey of the kind of thoughts and feelings that they'll have? And of course, anyone can scroll and not go in the right order. But in case that people are following an order, and I'm thinking about what it relates to, is it really what those specific people I just mentioned, that I'm thinking of as part of my specific niche, my specific target market, that I want to be saying to them? Because when it comes to life coaching and therapy, you can all do all of it. Life is huge. Therapy appears in every area of life, and you can help someone with addiction, with grief, with relationships, with confidence, with getting a promotion. Like, you can all do all of it because you didn't specialize in your training. It was used for everything. But being that specific makes you stand out against the next therapist that's also a generalist that can help. And that also helps you charge more, but that's a different story that I don't. That's things I've learned. I don't want to be the meta, but I'll pass it on whilst I'm here. But that's what we're thinking about when we're putting together this trajectory. And that's the kind of stuff I work on when I work with people on 6 months, 12-month long strategic programs. Planning is the first thing that we do. Because if you don't have it, you've got nowhere to go. You don't know where you're going. The audience don't know where you're going. You show up confused about what you're going to be recording. Whereas the first thing that I work with people on is the tactical episode toolkit. We make sure that there is a timeline of all of those things mapped out so that you know where you're going. And finally, the last thing that is keeping you invisible is the fear. The fear is keeping you boring. It's keeping you bland. You're just regurgitating what you've heard before, which, in itself is not an issue. But if you can't add anything extra to it, don't say it. If you've not applied it in your own sense, if you've not tried it, if you've not got something to oppose it, if you've not got something to back it up yourself further, don't even bother. It's not worth it. I don't want to hear it. I'd like to think that you aren't hearing stuff that you've heard 6 million times before. You might have heard about niching before, but I hopefully didn't communicate it in a way that it felt like it was talking about niche for the 6 millionth thousandth time. And to some degree, you do have to repeat yourself 100 times because it might be the first time someone's hearing it. But I need you. If a podcast is on your radar, if you're going to be talking on a stage, you have got to have something a little bit different to say. Because there is another podcast coach out there, there's another book writing coach out there, there's another life coach, there's another therapist. And you have got to be a bit more bold. And you're not boring, you're just scared of being bold. And I've been scared too. Like many of the other podcast coaches out there, or people that help you set up a podcast, don't half love a podcast chart. And I can't stand a podcast chart. But I get it. Because it can get you quick results depending on what you're doing. I just always get, and I think I have spoken about this before, but I always get this ick in my stomach. Because I can't stand there. I can't stand there or sit here and say to you, no matter who you are, I'm going to get you in the podcast charts. No. I haven't heard you. I haven't seen you. I don't know what you're talking about. And so if anyone tells me that, same for Amazon books, please don't even get me started on the Amazon book bestsellers. If anyone tells me that before I get a book manuscript in their hand and they haven't read it, I don't want to know, because that means that they're using something that doesn't feel authentic. It's just a marketing ploy. And for me, I can't do it. And this is the exact example of what you need to be brave enough to say. You need to be brave enough to say the things that you won't accept in your industry. And you need to be brave enough to say what you do stand for. And yeah, sure, say like why it's good. Be fair. Okay, yeah. I mean, getting a it's an empty bestseller. It's an empty podcast chart. Great, you got to number 10 by bribing people to listen to it. Is your podcast any good? Has it actually changed anyone's life? I can't do it. And that's what we have to be prepared to do. We have to be prepared to be bold. And I'm not calling anyone out in particular. I just don't like that practice. There will be some people that go, well, your method's a bit slower. Yeah, it is a bit slower. I get that. Why would anyone not do the charts when you could do it quicker? Is what they would say boldly. And it comes down to then a set of beliefs. Do you believe in creating content that is great? Making sure it's great. Even if it's not great at the start, it gets great later. And it gets into the chart by its own merit. Oh my God, what an achievement. Or do you want a shortcut that means that you could create the most mediocre podcast on earth but still have a podcast chart? That's how I feel about it. And I want to work with people that feel like that too. If you want quick fixes, I'm not here for you. And I've got to create content that is bold enough to say no to that. And so do you. So the little tip for you there is anything that you've ever recorded and in the editing process have been like, I can't say that. Just give it a second thought. Another second thought of, but I did say it. In that moment, I said it. Is it still appropriate to leave in, or is it still better to take out? It's up to you. So no, it's not whether you're posting daily or not. This is about your true message, the true depth behind what you're saying. Not just creating content, but creating connection and communicating your set of beliefs in a way that is super bold. That means that you cannot be replicated, because that combination of beliefs, that combination of approaches, that combination of perspectives is uniquely yours. It doesn't need to be any more frequent. It just needs to be more you. So have a little think about your strategy. How can you bring more you in? And if you need any help doing that, there are strategy calls that are available. They often come with some of our bigger packages as well if you want something more long term rather than just a quick injection. Head to Instagram and drop me a DM if you're interested in making your story heard, if you're ready to be heard and ready to get a podcast out there. Until next time, keep changing the way the world thinks, one podcast at a time.